Hey everyone, this is Justin from LitTube, and before I get into this week's topic for my Face2Face episode, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Gerald, who said I look like Edward Snowden holed up in some kind of secret bunker doing this show. So thanks a lot, Gerald, for the encouragement. Really makes me want to keep doing these. So anyway, this week's topic is polling in the United States elections. And my take on it is that I don't think polls should exist anymore. I think people should stop conducting polls for presidential races and any other thing politics related. There's a couple reasons I believe this. One, I mean, it's really just a distraction. Whenever there's so many things that could be talked about on the news or by the candidates. We don't need them constantly referencing poll numbers. I'd rather just hear about the issues. Sure, you're still going to hear about what the candidates did. Like, for instance, in this election, this current presidential election, you're hearing about, what Donald Trump has said or done to women and WikiLeaks, Hillary Clinton stuff and all that. And that's fine, it's okay hearing about that stuff. We'd rather see more of the substantive talk on the issues where the candidates stand. But, you got to factor in the other things as well, so that's fine as long as you don't focus on that too much. But I think the polling data can really just be thrown out the window. I don't care whether Donald Trump is up 5 points this week or Hillary Clinton is up 15 points the next week in the polls. I don't care because, look, first of all, the polls do not always predict the winner anyway. Really, when you talk about who wins an election, more than anything else, it has to do with voter turnout. Are your supporters more energized and willing to go out and vote for you than your opponents? Because theoretically, Hillary Clinton could have the majority of the country if you call them up on the phone and ask them, what's your preference? Would you rather vote for Trump or Hillary? And they could tell you Hillary. And that could be the majority. But at the end of the day, if Trump supporters are way more willing to actually take the time out of their day to go out and vote for who they want, and Hillary supporters aren't as energized to do that, then that's the script where you could see a Trump upset. So anyway, polling data won't reveal things like that, like how many people are actually going to go out to the polls and vote. That's something you're not going to know until Election Day. Now, really, I'm not trying to say the polls are always inaccurate or anything like that, but I'm trying to say, I just don't care. I don't want to know ahead of time who's probably going to win. I'm not interested in that. I'd rather it be a surprise at the end and not know for sure whether it's going to be a blowout for one candidate or it's going to be a close race. I don't want to have any idea of who's winning until it happens. That's more fun to me. That's more exciting. But there's other reasons I don't want to see the polls. They're basing, and this is really the big reason here, is that they're basing who gets in the presidential debates, for instance, off of polling data. You have to have 15% in all these different polls in order to qualify. And, I think that's a load of crap. That's not being fair to third-party candidates or independents that are running and want to have their voice heard in a national debate. And, part of the problem is you got the Republican and Democratic parties right now controlling that debate commission, and that's what's shutting out candidates like Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, Evan McMullin, and anyone else notable that's running for president this time around. So that's a problem. I agree, though, that you do have to have some kind of measure to prevent, you can't have 20 candidates on a national presidential debate stage. That'd be ridiculous. But I do think that what you need to do is have some kind of requirement, but it has to be something that's not measured by polling data. It has to be something a little more concrete than that. So what I would propose, and instead, is make it so any candidate that is on the ballot in all 50 states for the general election is eligible to be in the presidential debates. So this time around, what would that have done? That would have meant Gary Johnson would be on the stage. Unfortunately, it would have also meant that Jill Stein and Evan McMullin and others would have been left off the stage. But I think this is still at least a step in the right direction to make it go off of who's on the ballot as opposed to who has a certain threshold of polling numbers. So, like, for instance, uh, let's take Gary Johnson. So not 15% of the polls. He did come close at one point. I think he got as high as like 12 or 13%, but never could cross the threshold. But the thing is, it takes so much work to get just to get on the ballot in all 50 states. I mean, what that requires is a whole ton of people signing a petition for you to be able to get on the ballot in their state. It requires a whole bunch of paperwork to be done. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure everything that goes into it, but I know it's a very involved process, and you have to get a ton of supporters to sign petitions. You have to do a whole bunch of other things. I mean, there's a reason even Jill Stein hasn't been able to get on the ballot in all 50 states. It's not something that's easy to do. They make it very difficult. But having said that, apparently it's still easier to do than get 15% in the polls. You know what I'm saying? So, like, this time around, I think, most people wanted to see a third voice in the debate. Now, whether most people wanted to see 4, 5, or 6 people on that presidential debate stage is debatable. I don't think people wanted to see that many voices up on the stage, but they wanted to see more than just Trump and Hillary. So that's another reason that the polls need to be done away with, and they need to stop deciding who gets to participate in debates. Because, frankly, the more voices and different opinions you have heard, the more we're going to be able to learn as a general population. You get more views on a particular subject. You can learn from other views, decide, which ones you agree with, which ones you don't. But it's at least going to be more intellectually stimulating than having a bickering contest between two people and just have it be a bunch of negative things. I think, you have more candidates on the stage. It's going to be a more issue-oriented debate. I mean, it pretty much has to be, because I don't think you're going to see 3, 4, 5 candidates doing nothing but, negative attacks on each other. That's a very much an easier script for 2 candidates on a debate stage. But, again, I don't want this to be all about, presidential debates. I just think polls in general are stupid. Why spoil the fun? Like, why not make it more of like a surprise what's going to happen? And plus, there's the fact that, like, I don't know about you, but I've never been contacted to do a poll. So it kind of gets me wondering, like, who's deciding what happens in these polls? I've never been contacted. Are these polls conducted on websites? I mean, I guess some of them are, you go on maybe CNN.com or something and vote, who won this debate, who would you want to vote for, and, like, those are certain polls. And then I'm sure a lot of them are conducted by telephone, but, there's people that don't have house phones. There's people that don't have any kind of phone. I mean, I know that's kind of rare, but there's people out there that don't have phones. I mean, and so you're not taking into account that. You're not taking into account voter turnout, who's actually going to bother to go and vote. So I think it's very much a mistake to make polling a big thing in this country. And there's other better things we could do to make the political process more efficient and more fair. I could go on and on about the Electoral College, but that would need another video. That's probably the most important thing that needs to be reformed. But as far as polling is concerned, I say do away with it and stop making it a requirement for getting in debates. Everyone that's a legit candidate deserves to have their voice heard. Doesn't mean they're going to win the election, but we need to start having more voices involved with our political process. And until that happens, we're just not going to get smarter as a country and be able to understand other points of view. Right now it's a 2-party system. The 2 parties dominate. The Presidential Debate Commission, they set these poll thresholds. You got the media going out and basically putting out whatever poll data matches their agenda. So at the end of the day, the polls, they need to go away, if you ask me. But if you feel differently, go ahead and comment below. Try and tell me why I'm wrong. And stay tuned for another face-to-face video next week. Thank you. Bye.